This episode is brought to you by White Claw Surge. Nice choice hitting up this podcast. No surprises. You're all about diving into tastes everyone in the room can enjoy, just like White Claw Surge. It's for celebrating those moments when connections have been made and the night's just begun. With bold flavors and 8% alcohol by volume, unleash the night. Unleash White Claw Surge. Please drink responsibly. Hard seltzer with flavors, 8% alcohol by volume. White Claw Seltzer Works, Chicago, Illinois.
BJ's Wholesale Club makes holiday hosting so easy, we called in Thanksgiving's original host to talk about it.
Pilgrim here. We could have used BJ's back in the day. Imagine stepping off a boat, then foraging for your first Thanksgiving. It's a whole new world now. BJ's brings Thanksgiving right to your door with free same-day delivery on your first order of $100 or more. We're talking turkey, squash, pies, all at prices so good they'll knock the buckle right off your hat.
For terms, visit bjs.com/Thanksgiving and get the same great savings online as in club.
The show that makes you laugh, think, and occasionally uncomfortable. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Being rich, having way too much money, is it a wonderful dream or a moral crime? Or is it just plain filthy? Well, there's new research that says that your country, your culture, and your instincts might decide the answer to that question for you. I'm here with psychology researcher at the University of Southern California, Jackson Trager, who studied just this. Jackson, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here, Dave.
I wish I could have some Jerry Springer style thing where just by being here, you win $1 billion and somehow it applies to your research, but we just didn't get the funding for it.
People might judge me if I do that, but thank you.
And you might judge you, and I guess that's where your research comes in. Do you want to start by going over maybe the core question that you were trying to answer with your studies?
Sure. I mean, all over the news, right? This idea that billionaires seems to be bad seems to come up often, but it's not a new question, right? People have been wrestling with this idea of, is having too much money morally wrong across cultures, across time for a while. We wanted to know, is it just the local economics? Is it your individual attributes? Why do some people think this is a big issue? Why is it such a big polarized topic? And what's going on here?
Some people, even though they're impoverished, seem to look up to rich people, and then others who are rich themselves look down on themselves and their peers because they don't do enough or they're not charitable enough. And it's kind of money's gross. So it really does vary greatly how people view this stuff.
Yeah, one of the findings we were surprised on is, it's such a loud topic here, but turns out across countries, across 20 different countries, most people actually didn't find it that wrong, right? Most people found it kind of morally justifiable. Those that did find it wrong, the loud ones, often came from wealthy countries. So if you had a lot of money in your country, you found having a lot of money morally wrong. If you came from a poorer country, you said things like, what do you mean too much money? You mean the stuff that helps me survive and gives me hope and things along those lines? And also with inequality. So if you were in a country that was super equal, like Norway or Switzerland or Belgium, yeah, you found those who had excessive wealth to be wrong. But if you were in a country that was already unequal all the time, a lot of haves, a lot of have-nots, yeah, again, I know those people. I'd like to be one of those people.
Interesting. Did these findings surprise you, or did they mirror what you thought it would be going into it?
The economic stuff wasn't as surprising. There's a lot of stuff from like system justification theory, which is like you justify the system you're living in. And so if you live in an equal society, then you see inequality or people with excessive wealth as wrong, right? Because it's different from your norm. But if you're living in a society that's very unequal, again, you're used to that norm. So it's not so surprising. The stuff that was surprising was this like individual moral foundation. So we use moral foundations theory, which kind of talks about morality kind of like taste buds on your tongue, which is we all kind of share the same 5 or 6 moral foundations, depending on your culture and who you are as a person. You just kind of accentuate one over the other. Some people care about loyalty more. Some people care about harm or fairness. And so we expected, when people care about equality or equal outcomes, you probably think having too much money is morally wrong. If you care about kind of proportionality, which is, if you've been part of a group project, if I put more effort in, I want more out of it. If you endorse that, then probably you think it's okay. But one thing we didn't expect was purity, which is normally a moral foundation that's associated with like, cleanliness or corruption or taboos. People who endorse purity also found it morally wrong. That's where we got this idea of people beyond just fairness, beyond just harm, beyond just your country's economics. People find having too much money impure or corrupting or dirty.
Well, I mean, that would stand to reason because money's associated with power. What is
Exactly.
it if not power? For countries that have more equal societies, is there more to the why that they find wealthy people, like, I don't know, somehow morally wrong?
We try to dive into that a little bit. We wondered, is it, the way they make their money? Is it the way they spend their money? Because oftentimes you look at like two billionaires, you'll have like a Jeff Bezos, right, who's Amazon workers are peeing in bottles versus the Costco billionaire who makes sure the hot dog stays at one price. And so the way people gain their money or the way they spend it does have an effect. Um, right, whether they're benevolent in their spending or acquisition or more maleficent.
I don't know how right this quote is, but there's a great Fran Lebowitz quote that says, "No one earns $100 million. You steal $100 million." She probably said it many years ago, so inflation adjusted,
Exactly.
maybe it's $1 billion now. But that kind of view, is it this idea that if you're in an equal society and you get more than everyone else, you've somehow done something wrong?
Yeah, we didn't get data on that, but that sounds right. Right.
I
This
mean, it's
idea.
Fran Lebowitz, so don't argue
Yeah,
with
or
her.
I know there's you can turn on any AOC or Bernie Sanders interview and they'll start with this idea that a system that allows billionaires to exist alongside poverty is an immoral system.
Fair enough. And then countries that were more fundamentally unequal, I mean, where people really live in poverty. Did it surprise you that in those countries, accepting the idea of someone having excessive wealth was just fine?
It did a little bit. The way we phrased the question was that we wanted it to be as general as possible. We didn't put a number on it. We literally asked them in their very language, like, is it wrong to have too much money? And we made it very general because we wanted it to be, how they envisioned what too much money is, which in retrospect makes sense why people from more impoverished countries, more unequal countries, because too much money to them, maybe they don't know what that means, or maybe their envision of it is not what you envision when you're in Sweden or something along those lines. Um,
Why do you think our leaders, or at least people who seek to be elected as leaders, some of them at least, criticize billionaires? Like, is it projection? Is it trying to tap into what people don't like about the rich to try to get votes? Like, what are some of the reasons?
yeah, I mean, before last week, I would have had a different question for you before the election in New York last week. Of this
Yeah, I
idea
mean,
of tax the
Mamdani
rich.
spoke
Yeah.
out against billionaires in his acceptance speech.
Exactly right. And yeah, it's cutting into this core idea. And again, one of the thoughts we had when we first wrote the paper is that these approaches to tax the rich or tax the billionaires and things like that, um, while they sounded good and sound bites, they may have not held a lot of traction because they may have been resting on kind of this wrong assumption that most people find having too much money morally wrong, when in truth, a much smaller population in the US and the world actually find it wrong. But if you look at something like New York City and the voting for Mamdani, it wasn't the lower class people who actually, were his biggest supporters. It's kind of this like upper middle class people in which, they're already wealthy. They're not super wealthy. They are like the, $100,000 to $200,000 people. Those were his biggest supporters. And those are the ones who felt like they were, I don't know, mistreated or not getting their fair share compared to those other billionaires in the city.
It's kind of interesting, but I guess there is a difference between those in the 1 to 200K class and the people in the 1 to 200 billion class.
Exactly. A huge difference.
A few zeros, 1 or 2.
Exactly.
I studied math, but I forget how zeros work. Do you think these attitudes change over time, or are they really ingrained in the countries and places that they're held?
That's one of the big questions we have. We don't know. We took a snapshot, so this was just one survey over a few months across these countries. I would assume they would. I would assume as a country gets more wealthier, as a country becomes more equal, people's attitudes towards the excessive wealth would shift. But again, we don't know that. But it would be really fun to explore.
To someone that has unexamined views on the very rich, they just kind of get them from their family or their culture based on your study and what you've learned. What would you want to tell them? What would you want to enlighten them with, or at least consider a little bit here?
First off, that most people don't find it wrong, but I always, as a social psychologist, is just constantly second guessing all of your opinions, right? The idea of like, why do I feel this way? Is it because of my parents? Is it because of where I lived? Was it my religion and my politics? Would it be different if I grew up in Shanghai? Would it be different if I grew up with different parents? The short answer is probably yes. When it comes to these moral attitudes, we like to think that we're born with this like moral compass that drives us from our soul. But oftentimes I call it like a shifty eye phenomenon, which is like when something wrong happens, you kind of look around and you see what the other people around you that you respect and admire believe, and then shift them accordingly because, we care about our social norms. We care about people we respect. So while it feels like it's obvious right and wrong, as if it's written, in the Bible or something along those lines, which it is, it's a lot more complicated than that.
Jackson, that was really beautiful. What a great way to end this interview. I appreciate you coming on the show and having this discussion and sharing your research.
Happy to be here, David. Appreciate it.
Jackson Trager is a psychology researcher at the University of Southern California.